The stars above shimmered like tiny lights in the dark sky, on a peaceful research outpost on the edge of alien space. A young human named Lucas was adjusting his gear. He had just arrived 2 weeks ago, sent to assist with translation and peaceful contact missions. The place was calm. The air was filled with strange scents, and the buildings were round, glowing softly at night. It was a world of peace, but secrets slept beneath its soil. Lucas had met many aliens here, but one stood out to him: Kalia. She was young, maybe close to his age, curious and always full of questions. Her skin shimmered with soft blue tones, her hair like silver threads. She had large golden eyes that sparkled when she laughed. She was from the Thyalani people, known for their grace, their songs, and their strict traditions. Kalia loved to learn about humans. She asked about Earth foods, human games, strange machines, and even how humans greeted each other. Lucas found her funny, warm, and playful. He never thought their friendship would cause any trouble. One afternoon, they sat near a small water pool. Laughing about human expressions, Lucas jokingly said, "Back on Earth, we sometimes call close friends pain in the neck." Kalia tilted her head and grinned, her golden eyes full of mischief. Without warning, she leaned over and gently bit Lucas on the hand, just a playful nip. Lucas froze for a second, then laughed. "Ow, okay. Now you're officially a pain in the neck." But around them, everything went silent. The other Thyalani standing nearby turned, their eyes wide, mouths slightly open. One of the older ones dropped the fruit he was holding. A child gasped. A priestess took a step back and whispered, "She is chosen." Lucas looked around, confused. What just happened?" Kalia blinked, also confused. "Did I do something wrong?" He smiled and waved it off. "Nah, they probably don't get human jokes." But the atmosphere had shifted, and something deep in the air had changed. Later that evening, Lucas tried to ask what was going on. People were staring at him with strange respect. Some elders even bowed their heads slightly as he passed. Even Kalia was suddenly being followed and guarded. One old alien approached him and said, "You must speak to the circle. You are now part of the bond." Lucas scratched his head. "What bond?" The old alien simply bowed and walked away, leaving him more confused. Kalia was called into a large tent lit by blue firelight. Inside, elder women surrounded her, brushing her hair, painting soft marks on her face. She asked, "Why are you doing this?" One of them smiled gently. "You are to be prepared, young one. The bond was made." "But I don't understand," Kalia said, her voice shaking. The priestess leaned close and whispered, "The bite is a vow. A sacred linkage means you have chosen your soul's partner." Kalia's eyes widened. Her heart skipped a beat. No, I didn't mean it like that," she whispered. But the priestess only smiled. The meaning lies in the act, not the thought. Outside, Lucas sat near the fire, watching stars and rubbing his bitten hand. He still thought it was funny, until a tall, armored figure approached him and bowed. "I am Guardian Tharn. I am assigned to protect you now." Lucas looked up, shocked. "Protect me? From what?" The Guardian simply replied, "From those who would challenge the bond." Lucas blinked. "Okay, wait, what bond? What's going on?" The Guardian tilted his head. The girl chose. "You with the sacred bite, you are now bonded." Lucas laughed nervously. "That can't be serious." It was just a joke, but the Guardian's face was stone. On this world, there are no jokes about the bite. Back inside the tent, Kalia's hands shook. She tried to explain it was a misunderstanding, but the elders would not listen. A messenger came to her and said, "The human will be presented tomorrow for the binding rite." Her breath caught. No, this wasn't supposed to happen, far from Earth. On a peaceful world full of rules, no human understood. One playful bite had started something no one could stop. Kalia didn't know what tomorrow would bring, and Lucas still didn't know what that little bite had truly meant. Asterisk, the morning sun rose with a soft blue glow across the skies of Thyalani. Lucas stepped out of his room, still thinking about the day before, the bite, the laughter, the strange stares, the guards outside. His door, none of it made sense. He thought maybe it was just a misunderstanding. Maybe someone would explain, and things would go back to normal. But as he walked into the public garden for breakfast, all eyes turned to him. Aliens stopped eating, stopped talking, and simply stared. Some bowed slightly, others backed away respectfully. Even the little children stood still, watching him with wide, unblinking eyes. Lucas gave a nervous wave. Good morning." No one answered. He sat down with his tray, trying to ignore the heavy silence. He took one bite, then looked up and saw an elder staring straight at him, not with anger, but with something deeper. Expectation, maybe even awe. He quickly finished and left the table, the stairs following him like shadows. Elsewhere in the temple chambers, Kalia sat dressed in ceremonial cloth. She had not asked for it, but the priestesses wrapped her shoulders with blue silk. She had not wanted the golden headband, but they placed it on her with care. She sat quietly as the old priestess touched her cheek. "You are ready for the binding path," the woman said softly. "I don't want the binding path," Kalia replied, her voice low. "It was a mistake. I didn't mean anything by it." The priestess smiled gently, but the heart knows what the mouth forgets. Kalia turned away, tears in her eyes. "He doesn't even know what it means," she whispered. "He thinks it was a joke." The priestess held her hand and said, "Then explain to him before others do it for you." Meanwhile, Lucas was taken to the Hall of Echoes by two guards. It was a quiet place, filled with glowing crystals and singing wind. There, the circle of elders sat on high seats made of shining stone. A translator drone floated near Lucas, ready to speak if needed. The head elder stood, his voice deep and calm. "Human Lucas," he said, "you were chosen by Bite, and you did not reject. So you stand as one of the bonded." Lucas raised both hands. "Hold on, can we slow down a little?" The drone translated his words quickly. "I don't understand your laws, and no one told me the bite meant anything." The elder nodded. "We understand ignorance, but the act is sacred." Lucas frowned. "On Earth, a bite is not a contract. It's just weird." A soft murmur spread among the council. The elder asked, "Do you deny the bond?" Lucas looked around, unsure. "I just want to talk to her." The elder paused, then said, "She comes now." The heavy curtain at the side of the hall opened, and Kalia stepped in. She looked different, not playful, not smiling. Her steps were slow, her head lowered. Lucas saw the golden mark on her forehead and the silver threads in her hair. "Kalia?" he whispered. She stood before him, not speaking at first. Then slowly, she said, "I'm sorry, Lucas. I didn't know that our customs were so different." Lucas stepped forward. "What does it mean, this bite?" She looked into his eyes, her own full of guilt. "In my culture," she said, "a bite between close ones, when done without fear or anger, means a life bond." Lucas felt the words hit his chest like a stone. "A life bond." She nodded. "It's not forced, but once done, it's taken seriously." Lucas looked at the elders, then back at her. "Did you mean it?" he asked gently. Kalia shook her head. "No. I just wanted to make you laugh, but now everyone thinks I chose you." Lucas sighed and ran a hand through his hair. The room was quiet, heavy with ancient rules and unspoken pressure. The elder said again, "Do you wish to reject the bond?" Lucas looked at Kalia, saw the sadness in her eyes. He thought about how kind she had been, how innocent her mistake was. Then he turned back to the council. I want to understand first, he said. Not reject, not accept, just understand. The elders leaned back, whispering among themselves. Finally, the head elder nodded. You will be given 3 nights. 3 nights to learn the meaning of the bond, and to decide if you reject after that. No shame will fall upon her. But if you accept, you become part of our sacred chain. Lucas looked at Kalia, who gave him a small, hopeful smile. 3 nights, he thought. 3 nights to learn a culture. 3 nights to decide a future he never planned. Outside the hall, people still stared. But now, their eyes carried curiosity, not just silence. And for the first time, Lucas wondered if that little bite was not just a mistake, but the start of something no one truly expected. The next morning, Lucas walked through the temple gardens with Kalia. The sky above was soft pink, and the trees glowed with purple blossoms, but his heart was filled with questions. The bond, the bite, the traditions, none of it made sense to him, and yet, Kalia walked beside him with her head lowered. Her steps careful, her voice quiet. You don't have to be afraid of me, Lucas said gently. I'm not mad at you. She looked up with sad golden eyes. But I broke something. I turned a joke into a vow. Lucas stopped walking and faced her. Kalia, you didn't know, he said, and neither did I. We just come from 2 very different worlds. They sat on a bench under a floating light tree. Its long branches swayed even though there was no wind. Kalia took a deep breath. I want to tell you something. Lucas nodded, waiting. She whispered, the bond of the bite is not just romantic. In our history, the bite was a way to choose a soul partner. But not always for love. Sometimes it was used by nobles to protect their chosen ones. To give them a higher place. Lucas tilted his head. What do you mean, higher place? Kalia looked down. I am not just a girl from the outpost. I was born from a royal line. But my blood was mixed, so I was never accepted. My mother was full-blooded Thailani. My father was not. Lucas blinked. So, you're part royal. She nodded slowly, but I was pushed away, sent to the outer colonies, not allowed near the throne. Until now, Lucas leaned forward, feeling a chill in the air. What happened now? Kalia's voice trembled. Because I bit you? And you didn't reject it. The bond is real, and the bond between a royal and an outsider is sacred, the laws say. I must be returned to the royal court. Lucas stood up, shocked. You're saying? They want to take you back to the palace. Eh? Me with you? Kalia nodded. Yes. Back in the temple, the circle of elders met in secret. The council chambers were dimly lit with firestones. Elder Tharn, one of the old blood nobles, raised his voice. She has done what none of us dared, he said. She bound herself to a human now. By law, she can reclaim her throne. Another elder growled. We cannot allow a half-blood to wear the crown. She will bring shame. And that human will bring chaos. A younger priestess replied. But the law is clear. The bite was given, the bond accepted. They are bound. And the ancient rules must be honored behind the curtain. A royal noble named Vorn listened in silence. He had long hoped to claim the throne himself. And now, an outsider human and a forgotten girl were standing in his way. He clenched his jaw, whispering, if the human breaks the bond, the girl loses all claim, and if he vanishes before the 3rd night, the bond will be broken by shame. That night, Lucas was invited to the Palace of Binding. It was a grand structure, floating above the sea, surrounded by waterfalls and shining bridges. He was given clothes of soft silver fabric, and his hands were marked with glowing ink. The people around him bowed, treated him like a prince. But inside, he felt lost. Kalia walked beside him, silent, her expression unreadable. They were taken to a great hall filled with music, food, and strange light dances. A noble stood up and said, we welcome the bonded human, the chosen one of Kalia." The crowd cheered, but Lucas felt the pressure rising like a heavy storm. After the ceremony, Lucas found a quiet corner. Kalia joined him, her eyes glowing softly in the moonlight. "You don't have to stay," she said. "I know this is too much." Lucas looked at her. "You didn't plan this." She shook her head. "No, I just wanted to bite a friend, not change." The path of royalty? Lucas smiled a little. "Well, you're not the only one who made a royal mistake, but maybe." "It's not a mistake at all." In the shadows of the court, Noble Vorn watched them closely. He turned to a servant and whispered, "Make sure the human does not see the third night. Make sure he disappears." And just like that, what started as a small bite was now the center of royal law, political war, and silent danger. Kalia thought her past had been buried. Lucas thought he was just a translator, but the galaxy had other plans. The bond had been made, and the storm was coming. Lucas stood on the shining balcony of the floating palace. The ocean below shimmered like glass, calm on the surface, hiding the deep beneath. Wind touched his face, gentle but cold. He looked at his hands, still marked with glowing Thialani symbols. Symbols he never asked for, symbols of a bond he never meant to make. Inside the palace, voices echoed down the gold-lined halls. Courtiers whispered, nobles watched, and servants moved quickly with their heads down. He felt like a stranger wearing a crown that didn't belong to him. He didn't know their rules, their games, their old grudges. He was just a man who had come to help with translations. Now, they called him the Bonded One. They treated him like royalty, fed him strange fruits, dressed him in royal robes, but he felt like he was walking through a dream that didn't feel safe anymore. Kalia sat in her private chamber, looking at the horizon. She wore the old colors of her house, blue and silver, but they felt heavy now. Her heart was caught in two places. She never meant to bring Lucas into this mess. She wanted to show him her world, not drag him into its laws. Her door creaked, and she turned. Lucas stepped in, his eyes searching her face. "They dressed me like a king," he said with a weak smile. She looked down. "Because they want you to be one." He sat across from her, resting his arms on his knees. "I'm trying to understand all this," he said, "but it's not easy." Kalia nodded. "I know." Lucas looked around. "They act like I belong here, but I don't. And you? You were pushed away before." She gave a soft laugh, without joy. "Half-bloods like me are raised to be quiet, to stay out of the light. But now, because of a bite, I'm suddenly important. Not because they love me, but because the law leaves them no choice." Lucas stared at her. "And what about us? Are we really part of this?" Kalia's golden eyes met his, full of pain and longing. "I don't know," she whispered, "but I want to find out." As they sat together, a quiet knock came at the door. An elder priestess entered. Bowing low, "It is time," she said, "for the sharing walk." Lucas and Kalia followed her down a long hallway made of crystal walls. They were led into a chamber filled with floating lights and still water. The sharing walk was an old tradition. Two bonded souls would walk side by side, and the room would show their truth. As they stepped into the water, images began to rise around them. Lucas saw flashes of Earth, his childhood home, the stars he dreamed of, the books he read. Then came flashes of Kalia's memories, her hiding behind palace walls, her lonely eyes watching noble children play without her, her quiet wish to be seen. He looked at her, and she at him. The water showed one final imija, glowing bridge between Earth and Thialani, two worlds, joined by a single step. When they walked out of the water, the room was silent. The elders looked stunned. "The bond is strong," whispered one. "More than law," said another. "This is real." But in another chamber, Noble Vorn was Not silent, he slammed his hand on the table. This cannot be. She's winning their hearts. And the human is standing beside her. His advisor said quietly, if they complete the third night. Her position is sealed. Vorn's eyes narrowed. Then we must break them. Before that happens, that evening, Lucas stood alone in the library. A soft voice called out, "You don't belong here, human." He turned and saw a young noblewoman, Vorn's cousin. She smiled coldly. "She bit you by accident, didn't she? You can walk away, no shame, no harm." Lucas frowned. "I'm not running." She leaned in closer. "Then you will fall with her." He left the room quickly, his heart racing. Threats in soft voices, pressure in polite smiles. He wasn't just between two cultures. He was between two blades. That night, he returned to Kalia's room. She opened the door and saw the worry in his eyes. "They're going to try something," he said. She nodded. "I feel it too." But instead of fear, she took his hand. "We have one more night," she said. "One more day to hold on. Can you stay?" Lucas looked at Herat, the girl who bit him, with a smile. Not knowing what it meant, the girl who accidentally changed both their lives. He held her hand tighter. "I'll stay," he whispered, "between your world and mine. I'll stand." Right here, outside, shadows moved through the palace. Warren's plan was already in motion, but the bond between Lucas and Kalia was stronger than anyone guessed, and tomorrow would decide everything. The night air around the floating palace grew cold. Clouds rolled in above the sea, covering the moon in a soft gray veil. Inside the grand halls, music still played, and lights still danced, but not all guests were celebrating in the shadows. Dark plans were already moving. Noble Vorn stood in a quiet chamber, his face hard as stone. Behind him, his loyal guards stood ready. "She has one more night," he said, his voice sharp. "If the bond completes tomorrow, her right to the throne will be untouchable." A tall soldier nodded, and the human truly intends to stay. Vorn's lip curled. "Then we must make him disappear before sunrise." Far from the plotting, Lucas stood at the window of his guest room. He looked out at the silver sea and thought about everything that had happened. A joke, a bite, a tradition, a throne, and now danger. Kalia sat beside the fire, twisting her fingers nervously. "I don't want you to get hurt because of me," she said. Lucas turned from the window and walked over. "I'm already involved," he replied, sitting beside her. "You didn't drag me into this, Kalia. I stayed because I wanted to." She looked into his eyes. "But they want you gone." Lucas nodded. "I know. And they're not going to wait anymore." Suddenly, a knock echoed at the door. A royal guard stepped in. "Apologies," he said, "but the noble council requests your presence in the upper gallery." Lucas frowned. "Now? At night?" The guard nodded. "It is urgent." Kalia stood up, worried something's not right. She whispered, but Lucas gave her a small smile. "I'll be careful." He stepped out into the hallway, followed by the guard, but the hallway was empty, too quiet, the lights were dim, and the soft music from the palace had vanished. Lucas noticed they weren't heading toward the gallery. "Are you sure this is the right way?" he asked. The guard didn't answer. Lucas stopped. "Hey, where are we going?" The guard turned, his face suddenly cold. To the edge of the palace, he said. "Where mistakes disappear." Lucas's eyes widened before he could react. The guard lunged forward with a stun blade. Lucas jumped back, barely dodging the glowing strike. The hallway lit up with sparks as the blade scraped the wall. Lucas ran, his heart pounding, his breath sharp. He turned a corner and slammed into another figure, was Kalia. She had followed him, sensing the danger. "Come on," she yelled, grabbing his hand. Together, they ran through the twisting halls of the palace behind them. 2 more shadows followed, silent and fast. They turned into a side chamber, slamming the heavy door shut. Kalia placed her hand on the wall. Activating the lock, the glowing panel sealed the entrance with a hum. They both stood still, breathing heavily. Lucas looked at her. "You followed me?" She nodded. "I knew they would try something in the dark chamber." Lucas saw paintings of old royal bonds. One showed a woman standing beside a winged man. Another showed a pair holding hands in front of a burning sky. All of them were different. But all of them were standing together. They never thought we'd survive this long. Kalea whispered. Lucas stepped closer to her. "They don't understand something. I'm not here for the crown. I'm here because I care." "About you?" Kalea's voice shook. "They'll keep trying." Lucas touched her shoulder gently. "Then let them. We'll keep standing." Suddenly, a secret door opened in the corner of the room. An old figure stepped out. It was the royal priestess from the temple. "You must leave this chamber now," she said firmly. "There is a safe path down through the lower wings." Lucas looked at Kalea, then back at the priestess. "Why are you helping us?" The woman gave a tired smile. "Because I saw the bond during the sharing walk. It is not just lit, is real, and I will not let real love be destroyed by fear." They followed her down the hidden path. Stone stairs led them deeper. Into the palace base, guards searched the upper halls, unaware of their escape. The priestess led them to a quiet room near the sea platform. "Rest here," she said. "Tomorrow you will stand before the council one last time. And they will have to choose fear or truth." Kalea sat beside Lucas, her hand finding his. "We made it through the night," she whispered. Lucas looked into her glowing eyes and said, "One more day." Then we stopped running. Above them, the stars returned from behind the clouds. Vorn stood at his window, eyes burning with anger. "They escaped again," he growled. "But tomorrow? I will end this in front of everyone." The palace was quiet, but the storm still waited. And as the final night passed, 2 hearts rested side by side, neither knowing what the dawn would bring. But ready to face it together, the sun rose over the sea, painting the skies with gold and fire. Soft bells rang through the floating palace, calling all nobles, elders, and high families to gather. Today was the final day. Today, the bond between a human and a half-blood royal would either be broken or become unshakable. Lucas stood in silence, wearing plain white ceremonial robes. His hands still showed the soft glow of Thyalani markings. His heart beat fast, not from fear, but from the weight of what was coming. Beside him, Kalea stood tall, her silver hair braided with blue silk. She didn't look like the outpost girl anymore. She looked like someone who belonged here. The royal priestess approached them. "You have one chance," she said. "The sacred trial is older than the throne itself." Lucas took a breath. "What do I have to do?" She looked at him seriously. "You must walk the path of flame and truth." "Alone," Kalea gasped. "But he's not trained, he's not even Thyalani." The priestess nodded. "That is why it matters, if he makes it through. The bond will be blessed by the old spirits if he fails." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. The trial hall stood on the edge of the palace, built from black stone and red crystal. Inside it, the path was shaped like a circle. One half was fire real and alive. The other half was light, but it showed memories, regrets, and hidden fears. Lucas stepped in alone. The heavy doors closing behind him, the crowd watched from the upper balcony in silence. Even noble Vorn was there, watching with cold eyes. He whispered, "Let the fire break him." The first step burned hot, but not enough to harm. The air shimmered, and Lucas walked slowly. He entered the path of flame, and the heat rose with each step. Sweat rolled down his face. His breath came hard. But he kept walking. Voices started rising from the light around him. His past echoed in the glowing air. "You don't belong here," one voice said. "You're just a translator," said another. "Go back to Earth before you ruin everything." Lucas clenched his fists. He saw images of home, of his parents. Warning him not to get involved, he saw Kalia smiling. Then crying, he heard her whisper, "I didn't mean to trap you." He closed his eyes and said out loud, "You didn't trap me, Kalia. I stayed because I chose to." The flames backed away slightly, and the next step felt easier. In the balcony, Kalia held her breath. The priestess whispered, "He speaks truth, and the path hears him." Lucas now entered the second half of the circle, the light of regret. A beam touched his chest, and his knees buckled, pain-filled. His heart, not from fire, but from memory, he saw himself walking away from her. Alone, he saw what would happen if he gave up. She would be dragged back into silence, her bond declared unworthy. The laws would be rewritten, and the hope of unity would vanish, but deeper than all of that. He saw her face and how it lit up when he held her hand. Lucas stood tall. "I didn't come here to save anyone," he said. "I came because I found someone worth walking through fire for." The light faded gently, and the trial circle glowed. Fully, he had completed the path. The doors opened. Lucas walked out. His clothes slightly burned, but his eyes steady. The entire chamber went silent. The head elder stood slowly. "The path has judged him," he said, "and the bond is true." Noble Vorn stepped forward, his voice angry but calm. "He still doesn't know our ways. He will make mistakes." The elder looked down. "So do we all." The priestess lifted her hands. "By law, by fire, by truth. The bond is accepted." Kalia rushed to Lucas and grabbed his hand. "You did it," she whispered. He smiled through his exhaustion. "No, we did it." Warren turned and stormed out. Defeated, the nobles watched silently as the human and the half-blood royal stood hand in hand. A new story had just been written, one that no law could erase. Outside, the sun shined brighter. The wind felt warmer, and for the first time in generations, a human stood in the sacred hall, not as a guest, not as a mistake, but as part of something ancient, something real, something stronger than blood, stronger than fear, a bond born from a simple bite, a bond that passed the trial of fire and truth. The palace bells rang louder than ever before, not for war, not for mourning, but for something Thyalani hadn't seen in centuries, a bond born not from arrangement or politics, but from choice, struggle, and truth. Lucas and Kalia stood together beneath the crystal arch, the same arch where ancient pairs once stood. Royal couples, warrior duos, bonded souls. Now, a human and a half-blood girl stood in that sacred place. Together not by force, but by choice, the elders came forward with the silver cloak of unity. It was soft and light, but carried weight older than the throne. Two ends of the cloak were wrapped gently around Lucas and Kalia's shoulders. The lead priestess spoke, by flame and light, by bite and bond. These two now stand as one. Kalia's hands trembled slightly. Not out of fear, but because she finally felt seen, not as a forgotten daughter, not as a mistake in the royal line, but as someone who mattered, someone who chose and was chosen in return. Lucas looked at her and smiled, not the awkward smile he gave when they first met. This one was quiet, real, and full of peace. "You're not just a princess to them now," he said softly. "You're a storm they couldn't silence." She smiled back. "And you're the human who walked through that storm with me." The cloak ceremony ended, but the crowd did not move. For the first time in memory, Thyalani citizens bowed not just to royalty, but to the bond itself, and deep in the crowd, even some humans bowed back. Noble Vorn stood far away, watching with a tight jaw, but even he could no longer speak against it. The trial had passed. The law had spoken. The people had seen the truth. Later that day, Lucas and Kalia stood on the floating terrace above the sea. The winds carried soft music from below. Dancers twirled, children laughed, and lights floated in the air like stars come to visit. But up here, the world was quiet. Lucas leaned on the railing. You know, back on Earth, when someone bites you, it usually means they're angry. Kalia laughed softly. Here, it means something deeper. He turned to her. Now I know. She looked down at the sea, her voice a whisper. I thought I ruined everything with that bite. Lucas stepped beside her. You started something. Something real. She nodded. It still feels like a dream. He touched her hand. Then, let's keep dreaming together. Just then, a small messenger drone floated toward them. It carried a silver plate with a scroll tied in royal ribbon. Lucas opened it and read the message aloud. The High Council of Thyalani recognizes the bond of Kalia and Lucas as lawful, honored, and binding. He looked up at her with a grin. I guess this makes it official. But Kalia held his hand tighter. It was already official. When you stayed, as the celebration continued below, Kalia took a quiet breath. Do you want to stay here, in Thyalani? Lucas looked out at the horizon for a moment, then back at her. Wherever you are. That's where I want to stay. She blushed, her golden eyes soft. No one's ever said that to me before. He chuckled. No one's ever bit me before. They laughed together, not as strangers from two different worlds, but as two people who had chosen each other despite fear. Despite danger, despite everything in the days that followed. Lucas helped rewrite the old bonding laws. Now, the rules included a new line that intent mattered just as much as action, and that bonds could come from anywhere events stars apart. Kalia was no longer just a forgotten name in a broken bloodline. She became a symbol of change, a voice for unity, and Lucas became the first human in history to be written into Thyalani royal records, but beyond the titles and laws. They were simply two people who laughed in a garden, who shared stories under alien moons, who faced fire and memory, and didn't walk away. Their story began with a bite, a joke, a misunderstanding. But it became something sacred, something strong, and across the galaxy, people whispered their tale of a girl who didn't know what her bite meant, and the human who stayed. Anyway, a mistake that became destiny, a bond that began as nothing and grew into everything.